Ed Saindon here. I thought I would do a tutorial today on body and soul, playing a ballad, and discuss some of the things that I think about, some of the things that I learned from Gary Burton in lessons with Gary, and some of the things that I picked up, listening to Chick Corea, Keith Jarrett, Bill Evans, piano players, as well as sax players in terms of note selection and things like that. So we'll talk about solo playing on a ballad, and just solo playing in general in terms of some concepts that I like to use and I think are important. So right off the bat, when we're playing solo, we're not competing with a drummer or let's say an electric guitar player. So we can have our own dynamic range. So we want a very wide dynamic range, meaning sometimes I'll play a voicing down here and I'll just drop the mallets. You want that melody to be above the accompaniment. So if this accompaniment is too loud, then that melody, you're going to lose that melody or you won't have any dynamic shape to that melody. So right down here, when I'm playing the accompaniment, whether I'm playing a block chord or arpeggio, it's very soft, very subtle, just dropping the mallet. And again, if I'm playing in a group situation, let's say maybe with a trio, a drummer and a bass player, or a piano player and a guitar player, some of those subtleties maybe go out the window if they're too subtle. But when you're playing solo and you're recording, everything is really clear and everything comes out. So that's one thing that's really important, is a wide dynamic range. And we can play loud, but we don't want to keep the dynamics up here all the time. We want to have a nice ebb and flow of dynamics. So sometimes I'll raise it up and immediately drop it. You don't want to keep the performance flat. You want to have a lot of ebb and flow. The other thing too, I mentioned before in some previous clips of tutorials, is when we play the harmony, we want to make sure that the harmony is very rich with tensions and color. Not enough just to play maybe third and seventh, guide tones, and the full chord. Especially in a dominant chord, we want to add some color. And sometimes we can be very vague with the voicing. If it's maybe in a very standard type progression where you have typical 2/5s, sometimes once you hear the 2 or once you hear the 5, you'll hear the 1 anyway, or you'll hear the 5 after you play the 2 chord. So sometimes I like to be very vague. And there's a lot of things we can do with the voicings. We can play shapes in the texture of the scale. We can play intervallic voicings. We can play clusters. We can play voicings with fifths. We can alter the chord. We can play a major chord with a major 7 sharp 5, or a minor chord, minor major 7, or make the 2/5 maybe a minor 2/5, 2 minor 7 flat 5, that sort of thing. So if you listen to great piano players like Chick and Herbie and Bill and Jarrett, when they play these standard tunes in a band, in the trio, or even solo, many times they're harmonizing working with the harmony and harmonizing the melody with nice reharm. I'm thinking about Art Tatum. He was a master at harmony. Every chorus would have different changes. So that's one thing, solo playing with vibraphone as well as with piano. You want to have knowledge of harmony, all the reharm, all the substitutions, the diatonic substitutions, the chromatic 2/5s, the chord alterations. That's so important with a solo vibraphone performance. Okay, so I'll play a little bit and then we can talk about some of the things I'm thinking about. But right off the bat, when I play the melody here down in this range for body and soul, it's kind of low, so don't feel like you can go above the melody. So I'm not going to play the melody here. Make sure you have that melody stand out, sing out above the accompaniment. But I can go above here. If I go above here with like maybe a counterpoint or a chord, you want to make sure it's subtle. And whatever you're doing up here, make sure you get back in time for the melody. And another important point too is don't try to play the melody just only right hand alone, and don't try to play the accompaniment left hand alone. You need each hand to help each other. So it's very important when you play that melody to embellish the melody and not make it sound like you're reading it out of a fake book. All right. So a lot of dynamics, a lot of melodic embellishment. I'll play maybe just the first 8 bars. Okay. Now I'm going to play the first chord. It's going to be E flat minor, but I'm not going to play just E flat minor. I'm going to play maybe the F on the bottom, G flat, B flat, maybe something like this, or maybe even F, G flat, A flat, B flat, like a cluster. Right there, I'm going above the melody. Now right there, the D flat, here's the melody, and here's the D flat chord, but I'm stacking. I'm playing more excuse me, more than 2, 3, 4 notes. In this case, I'm playing A flat, then F and C, A flat, D flat, E flat. So I'm picturing 5 notes. I can play those 5 notes in any order. I can also play some of those notes as a counterpoint. So sometimes when I play counterpoint underneath the melody or above the melody, that's your opportunity to bring in tensions. So I'll give you another example right off the top. E flat minor. Now I'm on the B flat 7. Here's the melody. I'm going to play. That's my counterpoint. Here's the melody. The chord is B flat 7. So I'm playing D, C sharp, resolve back to D, B, flat 9, down to the root. I'll play that again. Many times I'm going above the melody with a counterpoint arpeggio. The other thing is you can freely transpose the melody up an octave whenever you want. So if you take the melody up an octave here, that's going to give you more range to sound the harmony. Let's take a look at that. All right, so right there, I'm playing the melody here. Pedal point. So again, think as a solo vibraphone player, you're an arranger, orchestrator. You can do pedal points. You can do ostinatos up there. It's 3 octaves, but within those 3 octaves, we can do a lot in terms of arranging techniques, right? In terms of the harmony, textures, double stops. So maybe I'll do. I just played the melody there in 4th, all right? So there's so many possibilities. Sometimes that's the problem when you're working on solo vibraphone playing. What do you do? There's so many possibilities. So think of the concepts. I think that's very important. I mentioned like an ostinato. I might do this. All right, so I might do this and play. Right there, I had the pedal down, everything is ringing, and that's fine, but make sure you don't always keep everything ringing. Sometimes I might do up here, I might play very legato down here, and up here play maybe staccato. counterpoint or the melody, that my left hand helps out the right hand execute that counterpoint or melody. Very important. Think about sound, think about dynamics, articulation, and overall touch. You want it to be a nice, light overall touch and not too forced and heavy. And one thing in terms of technique when I'm playing, you can notice the mallets are very loose in my hand. And sometimes, as I mentioned, I'm just dropping those mallets. It's not a forced grip. If you're playing with a really tight forced grip, that will influence your sound. Makes it kind of tight and not smooth. All right, you want a nice flow. And as I mentioned before, make sure you have a lot of dynamics. One phrase might be a crescendo, then you might bring it down with a diminuendo. One section may be kind of loud and it builds in intensity, and then all of a sudden you drop down. Try to keep the listener engaged as much as possible in terms of activity and dynamics. Very important. Again, think of texture. Sometimes it can be very full, sometimes it can be very thin. And sometimes maybe just I'm just playing melody there, an octave, and then I drop down and play a voicing. All right. So you want it to be very full in terms of the harmony, the melody clear, and then also add those tensions to the voicing, as I mentioned. When we come to the improv, make sure the improv is a continuation of the melody. What I hear sometimes is when someone takes the tune, whether it's solo or with a group, they play the melody, it sounds good, nice dynamics, nice touch. All of a sudden, you get into the improv, everything is kind of forced now, the volume goes up, and the time is not the same. So when we improvise, it should be a continuation of the melody, right? So you don't want to change the whole character of the tune when we improvise. Keep the basic mood and character of the tune. And I mentioned when you sound the harmony, you want to keep it rich. So one thing when you improvise is try to focus more on tensions with the melody of the improv. And then you can play the harmony underneath that as bland as you want, just 1, 3, 5, 7. But if the melody is sounding tensions, that's going to keep that richness. I'll give you an example. Let's say in the first two bars, I'll play E flat minor. I'm going to play the 9, then the B flat 7. I'm going to play maybe maybe the B, the flat 9. So it's going to sound like this. Flat 7, I'm going to play an F. I'll play that again. E flat minor with the 9, B flat 7, D, back to E flat minor, let's say with the 9, and A flat 7 with the 13, which is the same as the 9 on the E flat minor. And I'm going to sound an improv, make an improv with those notes. Resolve that F, and now I'm on the D flat major with an E flat. I'm going to go to G flat 7, sharp 11, F minor 11. Right? So the notes I'm really targeting and landing on for the improv are those tensions, and I resolve the tension either up or down to the nearest chord tone. So the nice thing about that is the melody, the improv is very rich, which helps the harmony. And with the tensions, I'm focusing on the tensions for the improv that keeps that momentum going. So that's a good technique. Okay, I'll play a little bit more, and you'll see a lot more happening at this point. So right there, I'm playing the melody in octaves, and I'm filling in the harmony in between. another way to think about solo playing. D minor, so I'm playing closed, G7 open. Right, so one thing Gary Burton told me in a lesson way back was when he started playing El Grande Amor and Chega de Ciudad, all those Jobim tunes with Stan Getz, that's how those pieces developed into his solo pieces by comping, excuse me, behind Stan. So if you just think about comping with nice voicings, closed voicings, open voicings, and connect those voicings with a lead line, that's a nice full solo uh, vibraphone technique, right? So what you can do is just comp on the tune and start, connecting those voicings. And make sure the voicings have variety, clusters, closed, interval, like I mentioned, open voicings. And you don't have to voice lead. So when I'm comping, I'm not just sticking in one range. I'm moving those voicings around. All right. So you want to just vary it. So for example, I might play E flat minor down here. Then on the B flat seven, I'm going to open it up. And now in the next E flat minor, I'll go more up here. Then I'm going to jump down. Right. So change the range. Just don't voice lead every chord. If you do that, voice lead every chord, you're going to stick to basically one range. All right, so comping as a means for solo vibraphone playing is a good technique. Um, as you can see, there's so much to think about. Not easy. You want to keep a nice flow, the time happening, the changes happening with nice voicings, and then when you play the melody or improvise, it has to have a lot of nuance, a lot of dynamics. Think of shaping your phrases. And again, listen to guys like Jarrett, Herbie Hancock, Bill Evans, Chick Corea, the older players like Teddy Wilson, Art Tatum, and try to sort of think about what they're doing. And you can't really duplicate it in terms of note for note, but you can sort of simulate some of the techniques. All right. So I'll just play a little bit more, and then I'll talk a few more things. All right. lot of possibilities. I was using on that last chorus some upper structure triads. In fact, on the last chord, D flat major, I went back and forth between D flat major, E flat, which is called a triad pair, and a lot of going above the melody, changing the melody from this range, and then moving it up an octave. The last 8 bars, I think I did like a G flat pedal. The other thing too to keep in mind is when you're playing solo with 4 mallets, and in general when you're playing 4 mallets, whether it's a group or solo, think about the spread of the mallet. It doesn't. You don't want it to be always open or always closed. That will limit your playing. So sometimes my mallets for a cluster are really closed. Sometimes if I'm doing an octave, they're very open. So you want that freedom to keep those mallets nice and fluid in terms of opening and closing. Don't keep them locked like that. That will really limit your playing. There's probably a lot more I can talk about, but I think for now that's good enough. And maybe another time I'll do like a 3/4 tune or a bossa nova, something like that. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email or maybe send me a Facebook message. Okay, take care. Bye.